I'm so excited today to have my TikTok friend, Katie Broder, on the Arthritis Life podcast. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Cheryl.
It's so nice to talk to you in real time. And can you
Right?
just, as a quick intro, let the audience know where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
So I live in Massachusetts. I grew up in Seacoast, New Hampshire, and my relationship to arthritis is I've had it for most of my life.
Wow.
I've actually, yeah, about 2/3 of my life, if not more.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, and that leads us directly to your diagnosis story or your diagnosis saga.
Mm.
How did you get diagnosed? What age were you? And whatever you want to share about that would be awesome.
Yeah. To kind of give like a little context, I was a very active kid. I was always outside in the yard and like I played so many sports. I played basketball, soccer, softball, you name it. I even got to invite only basketball camps back then. This was at that point, I think I was in eighth grade at that point when I went to that camp. But
Wow.
my symptoms started actually at about 11. So I woke up one morning and my right wrist, I couldn't move it at all. And my
Wow.
mom kind of freaked out and was like, okay, let's get you to the doctor. So we go to the doctor, they do x-rays, and the doctor, I don't think knew his elbow from his asshole, unfortunately,
Oh.
because he looked at that and it was just blatantly information, the inflammation looking back
hmm
at it, right?
hmm
And he said it was my growth plate not like sitting in the right place and my arm wasn't stable. So he put me in a cast all the way up to my elbow for 6 months, which if you know arthritis, if you don't move anything, it's
Wow,
not
that's like
good.
literally the worst thing to do.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep. Yeah, so that was a good time, but that's not when I got diagnosed, right?
Okay.
So they take the cast off. He does another x-ray. I happen to not have inflammation that day, I think because I took Motrin. Again, I'm like 11, 12, and doesn't show up on the x-ray. So sends me on my way. You know, about 2 years later, I start going through like puberty, of course, I'm 13 at that point. And I start noticing that I'm getting swollen now, right? Instead of it just being stiff, like I'm waking up with sausages on my fingers. And
hmm
it's unbearable. I couldn't like brush my teeth, like I couldn't wipe myself. I was having major difficulty. And my like I was just so depressed from it and I was kind of trying to hide it because I felt like I did something wrong to
mm
like feel that way, I was like, what did I do? What did I do to cause this? And I didn't want to get in trouble, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, so I kind of just masked as hard as I could for a couple more months and I couldn't hide anymore. I wasn't getting out of bed. I was skipping all my practices. I wasn't even showing up to class half the time.
Oh my gosh.
Um yeah, and at this point like I'm a freshman in high school. Like I should be having fun, but instead
Yeah.
I'm just so depressed and I like just not wanting to exist, right? And finally my mom like it took her a couple months to figure it out, but like she saw like how sad I got and everything so quickly and started really pushing. And she went to hold my hand, grab my hand, and I pulled it back because it hurt so bad. And she's like, "What's
Oh.
that?" And I was like, "Oh, it just like my hands really hurt." And then like we went to an orthopedic doctor, and they were like, "Oh, it's just growing pains, right?" Like as we all
Oh
heard
my gosh.
back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're frozen. Mm. Yeah, and like my mom kind of just she started to notice that I was getting more and more depressed and just not leaving bed like at all.
hmm
And she came in to check on me. It goes to hold my hand and I just like pulled it back, like wincing. It hurt. And
Oh.
then, once again takes me to the doctor. It's growing pains. And I then decided to use this newfound invention called the internet.
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
I would go to the library after school and I would just sit there and look online at all of like the scientific articles that were available and try and figure out what the fuck was going on because it was crazy.
Hmm.
Like like I had never known anyone to experience that.
Hmm.
Um, and then like, as a couple weeks went by, more joints started becoming inflamed and swollen and stiff, and I was missing so much school, so much.
Oh
And
man.
upon my research, I found something called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And
Hmm.
I went, huh, I check literally every box.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I printed it out, brought it home to my mom, and she went, okay. She calls the orthopedic doctor and she's like, what's the chance of her having rheumatoid arthritis? And he goes, no, she doesn't have it. That doesn't add up. And she goes, what, well, how do you find out? And he
Yes.
said, well, we can run a blood test and do some x-rays. She goes, cool, do it.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. So I go in the very next day, I get the labs and everything done. And that was, I remember this like super vividly. It was on a Friday, right?
Hmm.
And I remember Saturday morning, even though I was 14, 15, like I still loved my cartoons. I'd wake up at
Yeah.
like 10, like watch my cartoons, and I was just like sitting there chilling, watching TV, and the phone rings. My mom picks it up, and it's the ortho doctor. And he's calling to apologize because my rheumatoid factor was the highest he had ever seen.
Wow.
I was 15. And she actually said, it's not me you need to apologize. And then goes, Katie, you got a phone call.
Wow. Well, and first of all, like this is Monday morning quarterback, right? But typically they would send you to a pediatric rheumatologist to diagnose. Like a pediatric rheumatologist would have looked at those symptoms and known even without doing the test, most likely because
Mm,
swelling is not part of growing pains. Like,
right,
and having it, if affect certain joints of the body is not like growing pains is just pain, and usually in the larger
mm,
joints, not like in your fingers. And anyway,
right,
so I mean, but it's more power to them that they at least did come around and apologize. But they're not
right,
even the specialist that's really trained to identify rheumatic disease.
right. And it was just so wild going in there because I went in again for more x-rays. They wanted to see my hips too, because
Hmm.
actually I just got my left hip replaced 5 weeks ago. It'll be
Oh,
five
okay.
weeks
Wow.
tomorrow. Yeah, I've been dying
Wow.
to get that one done. We'll circle back to that story
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I finally got that diagnosis, like it was such a relief, but also like heartbreaking at the same time because I knew that I would have limitations forever, right?
Hmm.
Um, I ended up seeing this rheumatologist. For some reason, I did not get referred to a pediatric rheumatologist, which made no sense. But I
Especially
ended up
given
seeing,
you were in Boston at the time.
so I was in New Hampshire.
Oh, New
I was
Hampshire.
in
Okay.
Seacoast, New Hampshire.
Because
And
there's been a national shortage of pediatric
mm,
rheumatologists for a long time. So sometimes teenagers will
mm,
go to the adult rheumatologist just because
mm,
there's either like a year-long wait list to even get
yeah,
seen by a
right.
pediatric rheumatologist. But anyway, sorry. Continue story. I'm just
No,
trying to
like
add a
that's
little
such a, that
detail.
makes a good point though, because like she took a look at me and like she goes, I went to med school with a guy that works at Boston Children's that's a rheumatologist, and she's like, you're too complex. I can't. She's like, I can't help you how you need to be helped. And again, this was like towards the end of the week. It was like a Thursday. I had an appointment with this guy on Monday, the following Monday.
Wow. Yeah, and
Yeah.
just little quick context just for the educational purposes of this podcast is that something I didn't know until I delved more into rheumatology is that pediatric rheumatologists are first trained as pediatricians.
Hmm.
They're child body specialists who then become further specialized in rheumatology, whereas adult rheumatologists are adult internal medicine doctors who
Hmm.
then get do a fellowship in rheumatology. So they truly are apples and oranges. They're not the same. I mean, again, if you have no one else to go to, a
Mm,
child going to an adult or adult going to a child rheumatologist is better than nothing. But
mm.
they are different. And little educational point that now the name of the disease has been renamed from juvenile rheumatoid arthritis to now juvenile idiopathic arthritis to
Right, with
designate
a
that
bunch
it's,
of subtypes in there.
yes, to
So
designate that
many.
it's not just a kid having rheumatoid
Mhm.
arthritis. It's a different disease. Okay, but continue your story. You'll
Yeah.
stay linear and then I'll just sprinkle in. No.
No, but like it's so wild how much has changed just in the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
Um, and so she ended up getting me in with a friend of hers from med school,
Mhm.
and he was really confused how I walked in there based on my lab numbers. He's like, "How are you walking?" And yeah, my mom didn't know at the time, but I had smoked a little pot like in the parking lot before
Mhm.
going in
Mhm.
there. Like I snuck away from the car. And I looked at my mom and then I look at him. I'm like, I'm a little stoned. He goes, that makes sense. Okay. And then like
Mhm.
moves on. And like he even told me then, he was like, look, I'm gonna tell you this off the record, but it's if it doesn't, harm your life in any way and you continue to have reduced inflammation and less pain, go for it, girl. Like
Mhm.
it's,
Mhm.
there's just so many compounds in it that are actually anti-inflammatory,
Mhm.
and it's a really good tool that I have in my toolbox.
Yeah.
Um,
That was
yeah,
very progressive. How many years ago was that you got your diagnosis?
2004.
Wow.
Yeah, right around now, actually, it was spring 2004.
Oh my gosh, this is your 20-year diagnosis anniversary.
It might be like
Yeah.
somewhere around here.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And I was diagnosed in 2003. So
Mm,
I'm just a little older than you though. So I was 21 and diagnosed with adult rheumatoid arthritis.
mm.
But okay, sorry. That's so that was really progressive back then because I
Yeah.
don't think even medicinal marijuana was legal anywhere back
Only
then.
for cancer patients, and like you had to
Okay.
be terminally ill, like in hospice
Wow.
to get
Wow.
it.
So
Mm.
he was confused how you're able to walk given the severity of your all your
Yeah.
numbers. And then
Uh-huh.
did you get put on like what was the treatment plan? I'm curious.
So I started with the previous rheumatologist, the adult one that referred me out. She put me on a pretty aggressive prednisone taper, which love her for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I started with, I want to say it was methotrexate and Plaquenil
Mm-hmm.
combo. That lasted a little while, but I like kind of wanted to be a little party animal, like
Oh,
I was like turning 17 and stuff, like 18. I'm like, this isn't gonna work for me. And he was fine with that. So
because methotrexate, you can't have alcohol with it. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you will absolutely ruin your liver if you
Yep.
go to like, parties when you're drinking that. Like he even told me when I was on it, he's like, you can have like a sip of
Yeah.
wine and that is it, like just for the taste, and that's like once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not gonna really work with the lifestyle I want like right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was really cool having him as a rheumatologist. I actually check on him once in a while and email him, see how he's doing. He's still, doing some consulting at Boston Children's, and
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. And so what do they
yeah.
put you on other than Plaquenil?
So I ended up going on Enbrel.
Oh, that's what I was
And
on too. Methotrexate plus, but I was
yeah,
on methotrexate and Enbrel, but you're on Plaquenil. Yeah.
yeah. And I was on Enbrel for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I lasted a good 10 years on that.
Amazing.
But like the sometimes when you take a medication for a long time, it's not the getting used to it that I'm going to bring up. It's the opportunistic infections.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to switch it up, I think, in my theory, and like, like to um almost have a different attack at it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that way your immune system's not picking up the same bugs every like time they're near you. That's just
Mm-hmm.
my theory.
Yeah.
But I think that's what happened. I got pneumonia real bad one time. I was in the hospital for, several days, and I decided
Mm.
just to switch to different biologics at that point.
Yeah, had on episode 124, they had these an immunologist, PhD researcher, and a rheumatologist researcher, and they answered a question that I've been really wondering about. They answered it with research, which is like, why is it some people on this, like, I didn't get any really bad infections on Enbrel. Like, I got a couple of more like yeast infections and bladder infections than I had had before, but it wasn't like anything like hospitalization or pneumonia or anything. And like, but then there's other people, like, why is it that so many of us are on the same meds and some people are so immunosuppressed and some aren't, or so they like get more infections? And basically they answered it by saying like, we don't know why. So the answer is that the scientists don't know why, but they said basically they, over numerous studies over and over again, they always show this large spectrum of which patients get more infections. And you're right that it can depend on which medication. Like, I got tons of sinus infections when I was on Remicade. And then, on Orencia, I got fungal infections. Like, it seems like each one tends to get like, and again, who knows? I mean, my body had some other factor has been manipulated, and that's why. But so anyway, your experience is one that is a common one that you may get some sort of infection and maybe have it more likely on one medicine than the other. So you switched from Enbrel. Sorry.
And to what did I try? Xeljanz was just coming out at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Did I on that for like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years. And then that one, no infections, right? But I developed antibodies, which was super unfortunate because it was my favorite. It was just a pill once a day.
No, that's what I'm on now, and but it's my 5th one. But yeah, Enbrel, I developed antibodies to it after 6 years. But it's so frustrating to have one that works so well and then have to not be able to take it. So I'm sorry that happened to you too.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Let's see. And then I tried Actemra, which I failed.
Oh,
Orencia,
it failed
which
you.
I failed.
It failed you.
No, I'm all right. I'm a street, like, I'll take responsibility for my actions, my body. I'm just kidding.
No, I was gonna say, really? I was like, I don't think.
No, it failed. You're right. It failed me.
Yeah.
So it was Actemra, Orencia, Humira. I went to Rinvoq.
Wow.
What am I missing?
You have a bingo. Your bingo board is getting.
I know.
Yeah.
I have 2 bingo cards probably.
Yeah.
But now I am starting Cimzia, which is super similar to Enbrel. It's a TNF alpha blocker. So my current rheumatologist doesn't like that. He graduated med school the same year I was diagnosed, so I'm pretty educated as to my condition. He's not a fan of that, right? And I do stand my ground on it. And I just brought up a genetic test I had done at Boston Children's because, like, when you're that sick as a kid, like, they'll throw you in any trial they can and ask to get a genetic test done. And I started saying I had genetic testing done, and you see his eyes start rolling in the Zoom. And I say something, and I said there's a genetic mutation I can't remember exactly what gene it is, but the T cells are overactive in my body, which are supposed to be, they're good things usually, right? That's what like fights cancer. When there's too much, it causes inflammation, right? So I do really well with the TNF alpha blockers. It's just genetically I do really well. But then he heard that and like it was weird. He was like, he had like an awakening. He was like, oh, maybe I actually should listen to my patient.
It's an evolution for a lot of doctors. It's like there, but there's this funny social media meme. I'm guessing you might have seen it, but so it's like, doctors are like, doctors are like, don't confuse your Googling with my 7 years in med school. And then patients are like, don't confuse your 30-minute lecture on my condition with my 20 years of living with it. And like, both are true. Like, there's an expertise that going to medical school gives people that is different than the patient experience. But they're both very valid. And a lot of people now, are saying, or a lot of providers are saying, patients, especially chronic illness patients, are like equal partners on the team. I mean, because we're the ones that
Right.
have to live with it 24/7. So it's a very
Mm.
complex relationship.
Yeah. And we're all trying to figure it out together, like it's weird for everyone. It really is.
Yeah. Social
Yeah.
dynamics are awkward enough, and then there's a power dynamic because they have the power to like write that script. Like you
Right.
can want Cimzia all day long, but they're the
Yeah.
gatekeeper to you getting it. So you, yeah.
Mm,
So but I'm glad it sounds like they were open to your influence or your opinion.
yeah.
You got on Cimzia, right?
Well,
Or
yeah, I
you're going
did.
to.
And so I started this past week. This is gonna sound weird and maybe I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but I started noticing like 2 days after
I've
that
heard that's not,
I was feeling good.
yeah. It's not the most, it's not like the average experience, but it's not unheard of by any means. I've known people who
Mm,
they start Humira and they're like, especially it's the TNF inhibitors that sometimes are like a switch flipped. And that's what I wish I kept better records of my own because, this is 2003. I don't even have like a digital
mm,
record of it,
right.
It's like just random memories of my mom and I, and my dad too. But I remember it being like an overnight. Actually, I would say the confounding variable is that I was also on prednisone at the same time. So I was like, woo,
Mm,
I'm feeling good.
right.
Anyway, sorry.
I will say I had a bellyache for like 12 hours after.
Mhm.
But I just like kind of I don't know, just had some ginger ale and some like healthy, some good tummy snacks like yogurt and
Yeah.
stuff. And then I felt
Yeah.
fine.
Sometimes, yeah, there's certain side effects that tend to like go away after your body adjusts to it. So I'm
Mm,
crossing gently. I'm the arthritis gently crossing my
mm,
fingers,
right.
metaphorically, that it continues working. Yeah. Well, it'll be really interesting. By the time this comes out, it'll be a few more weeks into it. So maybe I'll put like a little note in the show notes of how because if it's working well after 2 days, I mean, it may work even
Right.
better after a few
Like the
more.
swelling was almost just gone. It was weird.
Wow. Oh, I really hope that it keeps working
I
well.
know, right?
Um,
I don't want to pay for any more joint replacements. That shit's expensive.
well, yeah, that was going to be my other question is, what other than the medications are like the cornerstone of treatment for most patients, especially ones with like aggressive, more severe disease, like it sounds like you were
Mm,
diagnosed with, I was diagnosed with too. Like what other things have you done to manage it? You mentioned cannabis and then also surgeries. What would you like
yeah.
to share about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so that first pediatric rheumatologist I had, he had the hip x-rays and was like, you're gonna need to get this replaced probably by your mid-30s, and
Mm.
actually emailed him, not that like I said, and it was like, oh wow, you're so on point. I
Yeah.
started like after him, I had this really great rheumatologist. He retired early. I mean, I think it might be because he has an unfortunate last name, Epstein. And he
Oh
kind of, I'm not gonna
no.
lie, he kind of like looked similar. So I wonder if he was
Oh no. Oh,
sorry, Dr. Epstein. But
oh.
he was the best, and the guy that replaced him, I don't know, he didn't really listen. He just immediately started talking at me fresh out of med school. I'm like, mm. So I
Mhm.
went to I call them the big box healthcare stores. So around here it's like Optum owns it, it's Atrius Health or something.
Hmm.
And so United owns Optum or everything. It's like the other way around, but it's a Ponzi scheme. Anyways.
Oh dear. Yeah. I couldn't do
So I'm
insurance. Ugh.
seeing I had one rheumatologist. She was okay. She listened and respected my experience as a patient, and it felt
Mhm.
like a partnership. But then she decided to stop practicing medicine during COVID, which I
Mhm.
get it. I get it. It was wild. I get it. Okay. Like newborn
Yeah.
baby. She was like, I'm not doing this.
Oh, she had a baby at home. Yeah.
Yeah. And the woman that replaced her, she was very nice. I almost feel bamboozled, like she was listening to me, but she really wasn't.
Mm.
Um, And instead of having my hip pain investigated by an orthopedic doctor, like I kept asking for, I was sent to pain management, which just delayed it so long.
I'm sorry.
I was like begging just to see an orthopedic doctor. And I kept hearing, you don't need surgery. It's not bad enough. And I kept saying, you're not a surgeon, write the referral.
Jeez, yeah, I'm sorry. That's frustrating.
And like, it's a common experience that people get. Um,
Especially when you were
well,
told already early on that you were going to need a hip replacement eventually. Like, why? I'm confused why that wasn't taken more
mhm.
seriously.
Yeah, and I had developed an impingement also that she had missed.
Oh
So that was
no.
nice.
Oh,
But so she sends me to pain management, right? The guy that comes in to do pain management was in the room for 3, maybe 5 minutes. And I have never seen more detailed notes in my chart in my life. Never.
for
He
five.
said he pushed all these, like, it was just wild. He wrote all these notes that like just didn't happen.
Oh,
So for example, the pressure points for fibromyalgia, he didn't even touch me.
sometimes there's this like with the medical records, they can just click a bunch of boxes. And that, yeah, anyway, yeah, your medical records should always accurately reflect what actually happened in the appointment. And
Mm-hmm.
you, as the
And I,
patient, have a right to review those notes and ask the doctor to make changes. You
yeah,
know?
I so I did that, and then in addition to that, I called the administration of the that
Mhm.
health network and said I would like to be referred out to Mass General Hospital. I'll go see their pain management, and that was my foot in the door, right? Like I knew I
Mm,
needed to get into that research hospital. If I could give anyone that's diagnosed any sort of advice, a teaching hospital, go to a teaching hospital
yeah, yeah.
because they check their boxes like 7 times. Like it's because they're students, right? Like they want to make sure they're doing it right.
Yep.
So that's what I would recommend. But anyways, I finally got in there and I ended up seeing the director of the pain management clinic there. He's like, why are you not in rheumatology for this? And I said, that's a great question.
Mm.
And then he ended up getting me into rheumatology, was again told by he's my current rheumatologist, but whatever. He told me I don't need surgery. And then that there's no such surgery to clear out bone spurs. Now, mind you, at that time, let's see, I had a nuclear bone scan done, and I have bone spurs in just about every single joint head to toe.
Oh my
It
God.
was called osseous activity,
Whoa.
and yeah, and it's just everywhere because I've had polyarthritis forever, right? And
Hmm.
he kept telling me I didn't need it. So again, I hop on the phone, let's call hospital administration. And I ended up getting my into the ortho doctor. It was actually a physiotherapist I saw first, which is what I wanted to see in the first place as well. I was like, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
be the guy that's going to decide if it's, what the best kind of course of treatment is for this mechanically, because it was a mechanical issue, right? Like I've got bone spurs,
Hmm.
stopping tendons everywhere. Um, so he looks at my records and goes, I really hate to make you have had to pay this copay, but I'm referring you to surgery. And I was like, no, this is great. This is what I wanted.
Yeah.
He's like, girl, I'm going to be straightforward with you. This date of birth with the year 1989 on it, I don't know how many responses I'm going to get to when I put this out. And I was like, okay. Because he wanted to put my case out to some hip doctors within that network that he thought would be best
Yeah. But
to
I thought
see
that
who would
because you were
be,
young for a hip
yeah.
replacement, but it's so not unheard of for juvenile arthritis to have hip replacements.
Right. But so it's still seen as like taboo almost, even though it's
Oh,
come so
weird.
far, even in the past like 5, 10 years.
Interesting.
So
Well, I know I
I
have a
am,
warped view because
yeah,
know so many people with arthritis and
right.
maybe it seems more common than it actually is. I'm not talking to like a
Yeah.
representative sample.
Yeah.
So, Wow.
One guy responded. I think
Oh,
he sent it out to like 30.
oh my gosh.
One guy responded, and oh my God, he changed my fucking life. Like,
Wow.
um, so he was just so like kind. Like usually when I hear of an orthopedic surgeon, I think of like a gym bro that's
Mhm.
gonna blast like the whole like Creed while he's hammering my hip out or something.
That is a
And like
stereotype online of ortho. They call them ortho bros, right?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, tongue in
He was
cheek.
like the complete opposite. Like he was just like
Oh,
super kind and like he wanted to hear my story and he was just like angry for me. He's like, there's one option. Oh no, what did he say? He goes, there's three options. And I go, fuck, because I worked in sales for a long time. And I used to
mhm.
say that was an open liner for me when I was trying to
Mhm.
sell something. So I'm like, what are we doing here? And he was like, you can do nothing. I'm like, I know that one. And then
Yeah,
he was like, you can do everything you've already done. I'm like, well, let's get to number three. And he's like, or we can replace it. I'm like, number three, number three. I
yeah.
was like so excited. Yeah, the recovery's been super smooth so far. I walked with either a cane or a rollator for the past like a year and a half, right? I
Okay.
haven't used one since 2 days after the surgery.
Wow. And that you said, was it 5 weeks ago?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. And I know that hip replacement surgery has come far, long and far, even since I graduated from a master's in occupational therapy 12 years ago. And back then, hip replacements were like you had to be, for sure overnight in the hospital, and then you'd maybe go to a skilled nursing. And now it's like they just send you home, and depending
Yeah.
on the other variables, but
I went
it's
home the
in and
next
out.
day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. And I mean, it's this happens like almost every time I hear people's patient stories, but it still hits me how much you had to advocate for yourself, like every step of the way. Like, what would have
Mhm.
happened if you just were like, okay, I guess this is what the doctor's saying? You'd just be
Yeah.
suffering, you know?
And I don't ever want to have anyone know what that is. And like, that's
Mhm.
why I share my like kind of what happened is because like you gotta keep pushing. I know it's hard, but that like when you continue to push, like like just persevere and not even push, persevere, like come out on top, you've got this and
Mhm.
like just keep going. It gets better. It does.
Yeah, and I think I wonder if you had the same thing. For me, it's like the first couple of times you self-advocate or you try to push for a different outcome than what your doctor's saying, you can feel really insecure because you're like, well, who am I to do this? Because, they're the
Mm.
doctor. But if after you have multiple periods of success where you're like, okay, so in that case, I was right to push. Okay, in that case, I was right to get a second opinion. And it gives you that confidence that builds over time because
Mhm.
you're like, well,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, wow, what a success story of a hip. And I think a lot of people, there's so many things that are paradoxical about
Mm.
having a rheumatic disease. Like you said earlier, with your diagnosis, it was bittersweet. There was obviously scary and sad parts of it, but it was also such a relief, right? And
Mm.
the same way, like a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, I want to avoid surgery at all costs. Like surgery sounds scary and it's like invasive and I'd have to recover. But in your case, the paradox is that it actually has given you so much freedom to get the surgery, it
Right.
sounds like. And so I guess what does that go to show? That don't go with your first gut reaction to something, I guess. If
Mm.
surgery sounds scary, maybe um consider that it could be actually a positive thing.
Yeah, and like it's really important to find like the right place too to get it done.
Mm.
Somewhere you feel comfortable with the doctor for sure. Like you literally need to trust this person with your life. If you don't
Mhm.
have that kind of trust with that person, that's not the right surgeon for you.
Mhm.
And I had that with this guy immediately. Like I knew he was, there for me in my corner. And I think that was a huge part of the outcome, as well as quite frankly, my mental health. That
Mhm.
they talk a lot about they did like so many questionnaires that I had to do about the state of my mental health
Hmm.
because studies show that recovery slows if you're depressed.
Understandable. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. They were holistic in that sense of looking at the big picture, not just
Mm,
your hip, but like your body and your mind, and
mm,
that's wonderful. I mean, that
mm.
you it was the only. It's almost like the person the physiotherapist recommended your case to 30 doctors and the only one responded, but it's like not a surprise that that one is the more big picture
Right,
person, I guess, because they were willing
right.
to do the surgery. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like making sure that I had like the right expectations too. He's
Mm.
like, what do you think you're gonna get out of this? I was like, honestly, I would just like to be able to clip my toenails. Like, or
Hmm.
go for a
Yeah.
walk, like not much.
Yeah.
Like just to be able to do little things again that I have been unable to do for so long.
Yeah. Well, well, the little things are everything. Is anyone knows when the little things are taken away from you, you realize that they're not so little.
Mm,
Um, and I wanted to also delve into your work experience. You did mention that that you worked in sales. And do you have any tips for people who are trying to navigate, or first of all, anything you want to share from your personal story? And then I think young people who get juvenile idiopathic arthritis, or, young adults who get rheumatoid arthritis are like, how am I going to work with this condition? Like, what is it?
mm,
How am I going to how am I going to navigate this?
right.
What would you want to share on that?
So that's really tough. Like I did the thing that we were supposed to do back in, 2006, 2007, which is go to college, get a job, blah blah blah, did all that. So I worked in corporate, but anytime I get a flare up, like springtime, sometimes I get a really nasty one because it gets really humid around here. And I have to call out for a week sometimes. Like if you can't
Mhm.
move, you can't move.
Mhm.
And at that time, there was no remote work or anything like that. So there was no sort of accommodating that, right? Um,
Mhm.
I'd get branded as like unreliable, or people are like, oh, she's faking it because she looks so happy today when she came back. Like, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
happy. I'm out of my fucking bed. Like, thank you.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
and then like
Frustrating.
it would kind of perpetuate itself. And kind of looking back, the only regret that I have like about it is that I listened to like the like immature office gossipy stuff, and
Um,
like I like took it too personally. That's like a big regret, like because they don't know, they don't know. No one knows till they know, like
yeah, yeah.
um but it's definitely a challenge because like I've disclosed it, I've not disclosed it, and I've been burned both times.
Mm.
Yeah. So my biggest advice is stick up for yourself and do not back down. You
Mm.
have rights.
Yeah.
You are you have the right to work if you want to,
Mhm.
if you are
Mhm.
able, and you have the right to do so in a way that doesn't flare your symptoms.
Yeah, I'm going to link in the show notes to the JAN website, Job Accommodations Network. It
Mm,
has a really helpful website where you can search by condition or by
mm,
symptom what job accommodations you could ask for, and it's
mm.
very thorough.
That's good to
So,
know.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm certainly not an expert in the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, but they do, protect people if as long as the accommodation people with disabilities are, um are have the right to not be discriminated against in the workplace, as long and they have the right to have accommodations as long as the accommodations don't provide undue hardship to the workplace. I'm not
Yeah,
a lawyer,
so
but and it
I
has to be a
had the last
certain
sorry,
size. It
go.
can't be for like a tiny, tiny little company. Like I think it's
Right.
20. Is it
At
25
50.
or
It
50?
used to be
Okay.
50. I don't know if they changed
Yeah.
that, but it used to be 50. That's where I got burned.
Uh, yeah.
One time anyway. But the last company I worked for, they wanted a note every 30 days for me to continue working from home after COVID, quote unquote, ended.
Yeah.
They wanted a note every 30 days saying I was still chronically ill. And I was like, I need you to take a step back and I need you to look up the word chronic and I
Yeah,
need
like
you to
think about
tell
the
me what that
sentence
means.
that you just said. Like if I
Yeah.
need glasses today, I'm gonna need them in 30 days. Like you don't ask someone
Yeah.
to go to the eye doctor every 30 days to prove that they
Yeah.
still need glasses. Like
Right.
what?
And like, yeah, it was a lot. I ended up leaving, which I'm very glad I did. I applied for disability and I I'm very glad I did because I wouldn't have been able to take the time to get this hip replacement done or fight to get this hip replacement done, right? Like
Mhm.
it took so long
Yeah.
and like yeah, it was just a lot.
Is it short-term disability or long-term disability?
Social Security.
Social So did you
Yeah.
get approved the first try?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
got a lawyer that was super helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's huge because I've unfortunately have a few people in my Room to Thrive support groups in the last couple years that have applied and even with a lawyer like been denied, I hate to say, or had there be like delays or we need this, we need, all this
Mm,
really kind of dehumanizing process of having to prove how sick you are. And
yeah, I
was
know.
that difficult? Just the process or
So the proving how sick I was absolutely not difficult at all. I live in so the approval rate in Massachusetts actually isn't as high as you think it is.
Mhm.
Our more right-leaning neighbors to the north have a much higher approval rate than Massachusetts does for disability.
Hmm.
They're just super organized. Like
Mhm.
massholes know how to get it done. Like like think about it. Charlie Baker had the best response to COVID in the entire country.
I didn't know that. I'm such a West Coaster. I'm like,
Like
oh, okay.
he crushed it. I don't love the guy, but he crushed it, And
Mhm.
it's just we're organized.
Okay. Okay.
And we like to make sure we have our ducks in a row. It's a weird New England like anxiety thing. I think it's like the Catholic Irish guilt that's
Yeah.
bestowed
Yeah.
upon
Oh,
everybody.
we were talking about Conan O'Brien before we started recording, and I'm just gonna imagine he talks about that a lot. Yeah. Like about like he gets all this positive feedback, and the only thing that he can pay attention to is like the one person who didn't like it. And he's like, tell me
Right.
more about why you didn't like me.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's I really definitely want to digest like the success stories of applying for Social Security disability, but that's the fact that you got approved is even makes it even more unfortunately egregious how long it took you to get even diagnosed because it kind of just is a testament to how severe things were, but so many
Mm,
people with inflammatory arthritis, which is kind of the umbrella word, or autoimmune arthritis for all these like juvenile idiopathic arthritis subtypes and psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid, ankylosing, spondyloarthritis types is like a lot of people fall into this, they call it the donut hole, where it's like,
mm,
if you're really, really sick, you get services. If you're not sick at all, you obviously don't need services and you don't get them. And you're like, a lot of people fall into this donut hole in the middle where it's like, I'm too sick to work full time, but I'm too well to get qualified for disability benefits. And it's just, I know this is not really your story, but it's just a heartbreaking thing to have to navigate that
mm.
middle. There's just no support there. Unless
Yeah.
get if you're married or have a partner that fulfills that role of earning money for your survival.
Mm,
That's kind of one of the only ways to get like I'm
right.
like otherwise
Your own
it's
business too. Like you could do
that's
something like that. Like, cause you're gonna accommodate yourself better than anyone else.
yeah, that's true. That's a good point. As somebody who has their own business, I'm like, I joke. There's a lot of like humor. We're gonna talk about humor in a second. But of like I was like, I want to be my own boss. I want to be my own boss. And then you're like 2 years into owning your own business. I hate my boss. It's me. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. No.
Do you
Still
ever
bad.
like send like passive aggressive emails to yourself sometimes? Like,
Only in my mind, but yeah, that actually, I should actually do it. Yeah. Yeah, but speaking of comedy, okay, because this is so cool. Yeah, we talked about Conan O'Brien, or I mentioned him, but you've been exploring a little bit comedy, and I just would love to know what has the role of comedy been in your patient journey and anything that you want to share.
yeah. So I have always been the class clown or the silly goose, if you will, um, forever, as long as I have known. Unintentionally, it just kind of flows from my mouth sometimes. And
It's a gift.
yeah, people tell me I have a way with words when I like insult them. Sometimes it's kind of cool. Like I have this like finesse in it's
Awesome.
interesting. No, but like I don't know. It just so I've always looked at it almost like when you're holding a purring cat, like it's got that healing property. Like hearing
Mhm.
people laugh at something just completely outlandish, but like observational that I said, kind of has that same effect for me, right? So like
Um,
they say not to make comedy therapy, but like fuck that. That's what it
yeah.
is for me. It's not like I'm not trauma dumping on that. Well, I mean, like, a little bit maybe, but like I make it funny, like
Yeah.
I have this one bit, I'm like, having RA is not all that bad. I get like a handicap placard, so I make some pretty good money on Black Friday. And
Yeah.
then it goes on to say like I also have a standing doctor's note to get out of a blowjob anytime I'd like. And then I like pause for a
Love
second
that.
and then I like look around and I'm like, it comes in handy at job interviews.
Oh,
And
I
like
love that.
and like I just like say weird shit like that. Like it just comes out of my mouth and I started writing it down. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I've always been told to just try it. And I've been working with my therapist for like almost a year now. And she's like, girl, are you gonna do it? Yeah, like just do it. Do it. And like
I
I
love it.
think it was like a week after my hip replacement is when I did my first open night mic and I did pretty well.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
amazing. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I honestly in my educational programs, I literally list humor as under coping tools, like tools
Mm.
in your toolbox, because I've never heard that people say that your comedy shouldn't be therapy. That's kind of silly because it's inherently therapeutic to, I think, to put a humorous spin. I mean, don't they say like humor is tragedy plus time, or comedy is like comedy is tragedy plus
Yeah,
time?
it's comedy, it's tragedy plus
Yeah, I
time,
said humor
yeah.
is not tragedy plus time. But
Right.
I found this quote that I've referred to before, but one of my favorite books is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He's like a Holocaust survivor. And he said, it is well known that humor, more than anything else in the human makeup, can afford an aloofness and an ability to rise above any situation, even if for only a few seconds. He even talked about how, like, literally in concentration camps, for in his perspective, like the ability to find some small, they call it gallows humor, right? For people who've been in
Mm.
like truly, and I do not know what it's like to be in that kind of a traumatic situation. Fortunately, I have the privilege of never having experienced that. But I think that's a testament to, anyway, to the power of humor. I'm hearing Conan O'Brien's voice in my head right now because he says like the most boring thing is talking about humor and why, or he says the most boring thing is trying to explain why things are funny. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's like he jokes it's like the most unfunny thing is to like deconstruct humor.
Mm.
But I think in the context of chronic illness, it makes it's to me it's interesting. Because like
Yeah.
if you're able to make a joke about it, it's feels to me it almost feels like you have some power over it, maybe. I don't know if you guys.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, it's like I'm showing it that, you know, yes, I live with this, but it doesn't mean that it has to be bad.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the time. Like I went to an open mic last night and I'm having a flare up right now. I don't care. I went. It's because it made me feel happy,
Yeah.
and that actually helped like kind of calm down a little bit, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you know Christina Applegate, the actress? I mean, not
Hmm.
know her, but know of her.
Hmm.
She has recently been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Right.
And she has done a lot of she's done a lot of really funny, she said funny things that, and I think a lot of people are shocked by it because they're like, oh, are we allowed to laugh about multiple sclerosis? You know, she was at like, it was the Grammys or it was one of those award shows like the Oscars, and everyone stood up and she
Mm.
goes, stop showing off. Like because you're doing something that I can't do easily. It's like standing up, you know? And I think it's so refreshing as someone with an illness because it's like if everyone just tiptoes around it, it's like it's almost further ostracizing, you know? I don't
Exactly.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
like I should
Yeah.
like I don't want to work harder to be the like cool kid because we always had to do that. Like being
Yeah.
chronically ill, we had to work twice as hard
Yeah.
to
I'm
be
curious,
accepted, you know.
like, what has been the response? I know you've only been doing the open mics for like a short period of time, but what has been the response? Like,
Um, so far so good. I did bomb one night when I tried out long form, which is
okay.
not so the long I can't read my own handwriting, so long form's not for me, right? Like I need keywords and
Yeah. Yeah.
that seems to work. So I have like bits that I'll write out, but then I have a separate tiny notebook where I write the keywords so I know like what my
Nice.
set order is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I just get like a lot of feedback that I don't know, people are like, you're doing great. One guy last night was like he sees me come on stage, he's like, not another white lady. And he like I start talking and he sees me afterwards outside and he goes, I did not expect any of that out of your mouth. Whoa. He's like, don't stop what you're doing. He's like, do exactly that. Like just keep doing that. That's comedy. He's like, that is true comedy. It's coming back. And I was like, oh shit.
Oh, that's
Okay.
amazing.
I was like, thank
That
you.
well, and yeah, I just think, well, first of all, that goes to show like disability is a huge part of diversity that is often like
Mm,
overlooked, that yeah, you may look like, especially when you have an invisible condition, or
mm,
a not obvious to the untrained eye. Because I would say like I can tell because of being an occupational therapist, I can sometimes pick up if someone has a disability, like a less
mm.
obvious one, like very mild cerebral palsy or a history of juvenile. A lot of people with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, you don't have it as much, but have like a recessed jaw because the
Mm.
jaw as you develop can be
Oh
really
yeah, if you look
affected.
up here, yeah, you got
Oh,
like
you do
the
have it. Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lost a bunch of weight, so like I still have like the saggy double chin a little bit there. It's
Oh,
kind of hard to
oh,
see.
no, not like yeah, but it's like that they hopefully it's a teaching moment for them, that like that you have a diverse perspective because or unique perspective because of living with a disability from such a young age. I mean, you are
Mm,
probably living with it since 10 or 11, not
yeah,
even identified till you were much older, which so like, oh well, she got diagnosed at 15. Yeah, that's 1/3 of your life later. Like
right.
like that's a long
You
time.
you grow a foot in that time frame.
Yeah, like I have a 10-year-old and imagining him going through pain for like 5 years before getting a diagnosis is so heartbreaking. Like,
Mm,
so, I think that I don't know, a lot of people say like you don't really get over certain things in your life, you just move forward. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like I'm never gonna really be over. And it was only about a year and a half for me, maybe 2 years, where I wasn't being believed by doctors. But that is like such a traumatic experience to be feeling sick, feeling shitty, be going to doctors who have the power to help you and have them say, like, you're not sick. Like that was just sorry. I've turned this into my therapy session. But, like and I was officially an adult when that was happening to you as
mm,
a child. I can't imagine how. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but maybe you're just focused on the present and the future. But that's something that I mean, yeah, that I still think about today. That like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's definitely something I still think about, but I've worked on it a lot in therapy over the
Mhm.
years. Like I made it really clear I want to work through that childhood trauma because that was rough.
Good.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
like there were a lot of pieces I didn't remember that I
Mm,
had to block out, because
yeah.
Like, but I've been working through it, and part of it is like doing the comedy thing, and I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
How did you find a therapist, like a good fit with a therapist? So that's something people ask me a lot. Like, how do you find a therapist that
Um,
gets chronic illness or that's good for chronic illness?
so trial and error, quite frankly. I had one therapist that I had for a long time that I should have fired a while ago.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, she like made at least 2 sessions, like her sessions. It was really fucking weird.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's
That's
people in
inappropriate.
Massachusetts, I'm telling you, people think we're like the like stuck up and stuff. Like we're kind of crazy actually. But I actually use Talkspace.
Talkspace. Okay. Is that like BetterHelp? Okay.
Yeah, it's an app, and like you can try different therapists before you find like the
Mm.
fit, and you can check off like stuff that you want to work on, and like PTSD is one of them. And I was like, I mean, kind of, I was like, it kind of meshes, like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I met with one, we didn't really vibe. And then I have the one I've had for over a year now, and I freaking love her.
That's it really is important to know about that trial and error because I think a lot of people try one therapist and they're like, I don't like therapy because I didn't have a good fit
Mm,
with this therapist. And it's like, no,
yeah.
that's each therapist is so different. They're trained in different things. So I think that I always try to give a little shout out to therapy because it took me a
Hell
long
yeah.
time to go because I was like had my own thing of like it's not that bad. It's about to get better. That's like
Mm.
optimism. Delusional optimism is not a helpful
Delulu.
thing. That was Delulu. I love that. Delulu is the
I know.
Salulu. I heard someone say.
The Gen Z kids are making the best like catchphrases.
I know. I really want to be Gen Z. I'm like a Zennial.
They're gonna rag on you so
Yeah.
bad for that comment.
No, I know. I'm like born in 1981, so I'm like an elder millennial
You
slash
are an elder millennial.
yeah, but really like my child, when I really think about my childhood, really is more like Gen X. I mean, there was
Yeah.
no going to the computer lab for like 20
Mm.
minutes a week in school was like a huge event. Like I learned how to save things to a floppy disk in high school. I mean,
Oh
like life
yeah.
was totally different like 5 to 10 years after that. But
Mm.
but okay, so now we're gonna kind of go into the wrapping up section slash rapid fire section. But earlier you mentioned if people, your advice to newly diagnosed would be like going to a teaching hospital. Was there anything else you would do differently if you were diagnosed today?
If I was 15 again,
I know I was gonna
um,
say, yeah, it's kind of confusing.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think so, because like I had, my mom in my corner, and
yeah.
she may be 4'11", but she was scary to the doctors
That's
sometimes with the
adorable.
words she would say.
Yeah.
Like she knew the right keywords, like NPI number and medical board, like stuff like
How
that.
did she
They
know
knew,
that? How did she know?
I don't know.
Determination, library,
We would
internet.
all fight over the dial-up internet to like go figure out
Yeah.
what was wrong with me. Like,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I realize that that question is, yeah, like maybe it'd be almost like,
like I guess if like I was a kid getting diagnosed again, and like something that I wish I had that I didn't have
hmm.
as a resource is like accommodations in college.
Oh, yeah. Such a good point. You are,
That's
you, you have the right to accommodations as a student, just like you do on a job. Yeah.
yeah.
What are those accommodations that you think you might have needed, like speech to text or
Yeah, or even like a little more extended time to do tests, especially that had like the written aspect of it. Because like my
Mhm.
hands would get stiff after like two
Yes.
minutes, like
Yeah.
because and like I, holding the pencil, like your knuckles freeze up. I hate it.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
like just if I had known that was like available to me,
Yeah.
that it would have been, very different outcome as
Totally.
a grades wise.
Well, and I think the reason I asked like what specific ones is I realized when I say accommodations, I kind of have a mental schema for like what that means, but some people
Mm,
might not even know. Like, I don't think I knew. I don't think I considered when I went to grad school, I was pretty well controlled with medication at that time too. So,
Mm,
but yeah, my hands would definitely hurt after handwriting for, on tests for longer periods of time.
right.
And I just didn't again, I think I had that kind of mindset of like, it's not that bad though. Like those are for people when
Right.
it's really bad. Like
We gaslight ourselves
I
sometimes, though. It's
so much.
brutal.
Yeah. And it's hilarious because the people who are gaslighting themselves who have rheumatic diseases and inflammatory arthritis are like actually suffering objectively so much. It's like, anyway. What is, you also mentioned, yeah, that this is kind of a similar question, but what words of wisdom would you share with a newly diagnosed patient today? Like, do you have any words of, maybe I should say not just wisdom, but like encouragement?
I'd say, you know, things. Did my headphones just disconnect?
No, I
I
hear
think my
you.
headphones just, we're good. We're good. It
Oh,
did a
I hear
weird thing in my
you.
ear.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think we're all set. So that's why I was like trailing off. I'm like, what the fuck's happening
You're
in my
like,
ear?
I would, yeah. That's it.
Um, I guess I'd say like kind of, I know this is super cliche, but like keep your chin up, tits out, like carry on. And like don't be afraid to stick up for yourself in any situation, whether that be a family member saying, oh, you cancel on me all the time, you must not like me, like shit like that. Just stick up for yourself.
Mhm.
Do not, you need to set firm boundaries and stick with them, but boundaries can move, right? So if you need to change them, do that. But just believe in yourself. God, that's such a let's see, like,
No,
do
but
you remember
it's,
that poster with like the star from like kindergarten? It's like believe in yourself. But like
I
seriously,
like,
that's what it is.
I like the one with the kitten with like one claw on the tree branch. Being like, hang in there. Like you can do it. Yeah.
But like it's so true. But and like a small thing that I do every single day, I've been doing this forever, is I write down three things that made me proud that day. That's like they either three things like I did or how I reacted to something, like whatever, something that about me that made me proud.
I
Three
love
things. And
that.
like it really helps with the mental health aspect of it.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna start doing that. Um, and do you have, on a totally different note, do you have a favorite arthritis gadget or tool in your toolbox?
I got a whole bunch. I think my favorite one I got recently is this like I found it at Ulta. It's this like shampoo brush and you like take the top off and you put the shampoo in the middle and then you like
Oh,
get it all sudsy, right? And then you
okay.
put the top back on and then it's like a little brush. It's got like a bunch of little teeth on it and you like slide your hand in it and it's got like a nice like fit on there and then you can just get a nice deep shampoo with just going like
Nice.
this.
I love that. I have
Yeah.
a hair scrubber, but
Yeah.
it's like a plastic thing that you slide your two fingers around like this
Mm,
knob thing. You still have to it doesn't create the sudsy effect. So
mm,
I like that idea. Okay, I'm gonna check
yeah.
that out. We don't have it all in Washington State, tragically. Um,
Mm.
what is it? Do you have a favorite piece of pop culture, like a movie or book or show that you've been consuming recently?
Well, as you and I bonded over earlier, I am a Conan stan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I actually sometimes like to pretend I'm Sona and like
Oh my
live
God, you could
through
so be
her.
Sona. You're totally the Boston version of Sona. Yeah.
Um, and then I've been watching The Rookie lately, and
Oh,
the only reason I found out about it is I was scrolling through TikTok and Daddy Cop came on, and I was
okay.
like, "Holy shit, it's Nathan Fillion!" And I was like, because I always look at my husband, and I'm like, "That's my hall pass." I was like, "Sweetie, I'm leaving you the
Nathan
day
Fillion's so
Nathan gets
cute.
on that knee. I'm out."
Rookie.
We
I
have the
didn't
same
know.
birthday, so we're technically compatible. Like we're both Aries, like it kind of
Oh my
works, you know.
gosh. Oh, I didn't know about this show. I'm looking it up as you're talking. That looks awesome. Okay. Oh man, this cast is all
Yeah.
beautiful. Okay.
Right. But Nathan Fillion is from, I'm sure you remember Firefly and
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
Castle and everything. But
Castle.
I saw
Yes.
that And I was like, oh, hey, what's Nathan Fillion doing in a cop uniform? And then I
Yeah,
was like, we gotta watch this. This is fantastic. And oh
that's
my God,
oh
it's
my
so
God.
good.
That's wonderful. Do you have a favorite like mantra or inspirational saying?
Um, hmm. I don't know. I don't really
That's a
like
hard
do
one.
the like mantras and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Like sometimes I like, look in the mirror and like kind of go snap out of it. Like, I guess that's a good one.
Get out of here. That's New York. Sorry, that's not Boston.
Got the shit.
Yeah. You know what?
Get
Yeah,
out of the way.
I always say that like I'm not a tough love, like that tough love doesn't work well for me, but it actually does sometimes. Again, context is everything. Yeah. Sometimes you just need that kind of like coach voice in your head. I'm thinking of like
Yeah,
the
like I'll
soccer.
be like, stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
And then like I stop.
Get it together. Get it together. Get it together. What's something other than The Rookie and Conan O'Brien's new show? What is else is bringing you joy lately?
Um, I mean, I go to the dog park a lot.
Oh, dogs! Yay!
Yeah,
Do you have a
yeah.
dog or you just go to the park?
I have a Chihuahua Min Pin mix. He's
Oh,
11, but acts like he's a
oh,
puppy.
oh,
Yeah, he's
mine's
completely
5 and he's
unhinged.
people think he's a puppy. Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. I actually went to the dog park before I got a dog because I just love dogs. They're so
They're the
the
best. Like they're
best.
just and like they know when you feel crappy and like they just
Right.
automatically just snuggle without you even having to do anything. It's the best.
Yes.
And then my
Um,
cat will come slap me in the face and be like, get over it. I'm like, all right,
Actually, that's
fine.
like the two inner voices that you need, right? You sometimes need
Right?
the cat and you sometimes need the dog. The dog's like, you're doing awesome. I love you just as you are. And the cat's like, get it together. Prove your shit or I'm out of here. Um, what this is the last one. What does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive, if that resonates with you, with rheumatic disease?
What it means to me is to live in a way where I'm true to who I am and I'm no longer sugarcoating how I feel for the comfort of
Mm.
people around me. So just being like realistic, and then like accommodating my life to my needs, right? Like
Mm.
I'm not accommodating other people. I'm not doing that shit anymore. We're accommodating my life to my needs
I love
and
that.
putting myself as a priority.
I'm taking inspiration from that seriously because I'm really a recovering like people pleaser, which has gotten me some like wonderful places in life, but it
Mm,
also can get you taken advantage of or, with your consent though. That's what's so like, why
I
did
know,
I
right?
agree to do this? Like I kind of overcommit myself. I'm like, sure, I'll volunteer for this. I'll do that. I'll do that. And then
Mm,
anyway, so and then I'm like, why am I so why am I so overcommitted? Like maybe because you said yes
right.
to everything. Like you need to stop being an improv person and saying yes, yes, and like you need to
Hmm.
actually be like, I am a human with boundaries and
Yep.
you can say no, and the world's not going to come crashing down. So thank you for that. Where can people find you online?
So I'm not very technologically savvy,
That's okay.
but I am on TikTok as Jointed RA Chronicles. You see what I did there?
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
And then I am on
Your
YouTube
YouTube. I love that.
as
The trauma tickled
Trauma
rheumatism.
Tickled Rheumatism. I had to read it because I can never like keep it in my brain.
I
Trauma
just
Tickled
subscribed.
Rheumatism.
Yep. I'm your latest subscriber on
My
YouTube.
only.
Yeah, I already
I'm
was
just kidding.
on. No, it's okay.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, because I just like started posting stuff. I haven't even put a video up yet, actually.
Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember thinking it was too late. Like when I started a podcast in 2020, like, oh my gosh,
Mm.
like I'm already too late. Like there's so many podcasts out there, but
Yeah.
it's never too late.
Never.
Um, Yay. Well, thank you. This was really, really interesting. And I think that a lot of people will resonate with. I love your, style of, like you're saying, you're not sugarcoating it, but you're also like finding, like, maybe not like silver linings, but finding just ways to craft a life that works for you, with chronic illness. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's, even if you're somebody who enjoys sharing your story, it takes a lot of like emotional and mental effort to do so. So thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
And,
Thank you so much for having me.
oh, it's so great. And those listening on just the audio podcast, just know that there is also a video version on the Arthritis Life YouTube, which is just Arthritis Life. It's like youtube.com. What is it like? And then at Arthritis Life. Yeah. And there's also like a transcript you can find if you want to pull amazing quotes. Like, what is it that she said on the Arthritis Life like website? So that's just it's actually arthritis.theenthusiasticlife.com, because that was a domain I got in 2010, theenthusiasticlife.com, which was, before I really experienced autoimmune fatigue. And then I was like, not always able to be so enthusiastic, but that's a core value of mine, is trying to be, enthusiastic about whatever I commit to. So anyway, thank you again, Katie. We'll talk soon. I'll see you on TikTok.
Sounds good. Take care. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.